and I would first like to thank IMI for the kind invitation to speak here today in front of such a distinguished audience. And it's my privilege to today speak a few words about the state of the industry today. And first, a couple of words of IFPI. As many of you know, IFPI is the association representing the recording industry worldwide. We have some 1,300 members operating in 59 countries and national groups like IMI here in India in 56 countries. So, without further ado, let's see how this works, if this works. Yes, it does. I want to start with the most important thing, which is it is a great time to be a music fan. Thanks to music labels and the labels' digital partners, there's more music available to consumers today than ever before. Whenever consumers want, the way they want, and when they want. And this is very much thanks to the fact that the music industry today is a truly digital industry. Globally, close to 60%, 58.9 to be absolutely precise, of the industry sales revenues came from digital services in 2018. And the single biggest revenue source for the industry is online streaming. In 38 markets, streaming already accounts for more than half of the industry revenues. And here in India, obviously, streaming actually accounts for a whopping 83% of the industry revenues. At the same time, though, physical product is still an important part of the industry revenue mix, and the industry continues to support also physical. And at the same time, performance rights revenue, royalties from the use of music in public venues, radio and TV accounts for an important part, roughly 14% of the industry overall revenue. And what is more, after some 15 years of decline globally, mainly due to if you will, a perfect storm of rampant piracy and the double transition from analog to digital and ownership to access-based consumption of digital content, the industry is now a growth industry. For the fourth consecutive year, the overall industry revenue kept going, and the main driver for this growth really is paid streaming. So, in 2018, if you will, the big numbers measured in wholesale or trade value, the industry was worth $19.1 billion US, which amounts to 9.7% growth year on year. And what is particularly exciting for countries like India is that actually here the growth rate was double the average, over 24%. And where does that then put, if you will, India in the overall picture? Well, the good news, as we heard from chairman of IMI, is that India has a massive growth potential. The less good news, if you will, is that India globally is still punching way below its weight when it comes to the value of its recorded music industry. For instance, if we look at Brazil and China, which are both already top 10 markets, and thanks to the growth of streaming, are constantly and consistently growing strong. Brazil 15.4% and China, again, a whopping 79.6% year on year. Which is at the same time also evidence of one of the most exciting features of the new digital music industry. It is truly global, and markets such as Mexico or China or Brazil that few years ago were all but lost due to piracy mainly are back and growing strongly and very much due to the success of local repertoire. But at the same time, it's important to bear in mind that what has happened, the positive trends, they did not just happen, they were not accidents. Music labels have invested in making music and making music available to the largest possible audiences in a variety of ways. A recent IFPI study shows that in 2017, labels invested over 30% of their revenues, or $5.8 billion US in a year, in artist and repertoire and marketing, which roughly equates to research and developments in other industries. And that, I would maintain, makes record labels the engine of the entire music industry. In fact, labels' role as a partner to the artist is more important than ever. Labels provide artists a variety of services, from production to promotion, data insight to legal support, and very crucially, finding and monetizing new revenue opportunities. So, healthy and growing industry is important for the entire music sector. As much is evident from the recent study published by the Recording Industry Association of America, for instance. According to that study, the broader music sector in the US alone created 1.9 million jobs, with an overall earnings exceeding $70 billion in the US for the broader music industry. And those figures for a single country are not negligible. So that's all good. We are a digital industry, we are a growth industry, and the labels are really, pushing the envelope to ensure that the entire sector grows. At the same time, it's very important that we don't get complacent. Industry growth is not a given. The main threat that we see right now to the realization, if you will, of the true value potential of the industry is the fact that the laws underpinning the digital content market are not always sufficiently clear, or sometimes are outright unfit for purpose. In particular, rules limiting the copyright liability of online intermediaries, also known as safe harbor rules, have emboldened some platforms to distribute music without first negotiating licenses. The results of such market distorting rules are particularly striking when you compare, for instance, the consumption and payments made by user-uploaded content video sharing services, which are currently the largest on-demand online music services, and audio-on-demand streaming services. In India, for instance, user-upload video sharing services such as YouTube account for 55% of all time spent listening to streaming music, but at the same time account for only 26% of revenues, whereas paid audio streaming accounted for 25% of all time spent listening to streaming music, but accounted for 39% of revenues. So there is a clear and significant mismatch. So against that backdrop, I think it's fair to say that probably the most important development for the industry globally was the adoption of the EU Digital Single Market Copyright Directive, which aims at clarifying the application of copyright liability rules to user-upload content platforms. It states that platforms that play an active role in making copyright content available on these services engage in a copyright-restricted act and cannot rely on liability limitations, which all said and done should ensure that all players in the digital on-demand streaming space will negotiate fair licenses. So, to summarize, the global development from an Indian perspective, if you will, first and foremost, the Indian market has great potential. but we need to ensure that the legal framework supports the developments of a free, fair and competitive marketplace. And second, ensure that piracy is not allowed to undermine the growth of legal services. Thank you, and happy to take any discussion or questions or discuss this later.